Hello, and welcome to week 10. As promised, making a short video to give you an introduction to the week and show you what it is you're supposed to do, and maybe give you a little explanation of what we're looking for. And we'll start by taking a look at the week at a glance. I always encourage you all to take a look at this, to use it to plan your work for this class. And I know you get similar stuff from your other classes. Just makes things a little less stressful. Okay, so for this week, we're continuing with the legislative branch. And now that we know how a law is passed, the process by which that happens, and the responsibilities and characteristics of each of the two houses, now it's time to look at what it is they actually have the power to do. And that's the focus of this week's work. We're going to do it by looking at three things. The first of them is going to be the difference between federal law, that is, laws made by Congress under the Constitution of the United States, and state and local laws, which are made under our federalist system by the local governments in states and counties and cities and towns. It's an important distinction because while neither law is necessarily more significant than the other, neither kind of law is more significant than the other. They do have different responsibilities, and it's important for us to know what is the responsibility of Congress, but also, to a certain extent, what isn't. The next thing that we're going to be looking at is Article 1, Section 8. And Article 1, Section 8, as you know, because we've looked at it in a couple of different ways before, is where there is a list of enumerated or expressed powers of Congress. Article 1, Section 8, clauses 1 through 17. The very specific things that Congress can make laws about. They have those powers and not many others. But there is a final clause in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18, which is called the Necessary and Proper Clause. And this does confuse matters a little bit because it is called the Necessary and Proper Clause. It gives Congress the power to do whatever is necessary, whatever's proper, in order to make sure they're able to do the previous 17 things. Which gives them a little bit of flexibility. It applies more powers than those that are just written in Article 1, Section 8, clauses 1 through 17. So there are the expressed enumerated powers, but there are also these implied powers. We have to understand them. We have to understand the difference and how that works. That will be the topic of our first assignment, which is the what powers is it assignment. And for this assignment, and I'll take a quick look at it here, you're simply going to be looking at 10 laws that have either been made by Congress or which have been suggested by members of Congress. And you're going to find in Article 1, Section 8, clauses 1 through 17, where they get the power to make that law. Now, it's important to note, every law that Congress makes uses one of these 17 powers to make that law. It does not ever make laws without using one of those 17 powers. However, as I mentioned before, there are these implied powers that come along with the necessary and proper clause, which allows them to make laws regarding the enumerated or expressed powers. Here's an example. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1 expresses the power that Congress has the power to make laws that assess taxes, that give taxes. They are allowed to tax. The necessary and proper clause then allows Congress to also create an agency to collect those taxes. That would be the Internal Revenue Service, IRS. It allows Congress to make laws to punish people who commit tax fraud, right? They're things that are logically connected to the expressed or enumerated powers, but they're never made without at least one of the expressed or enumerated powers. Okay, so again, your goal here then is to figure out what expressed or enumerated power is used to make each of these laws. You're going to cite that article, section, and clause number in the proper ways we've been doing. You're going to paraphrase that clause of Article 1, Section 8. Remember, when I say paraphrase, I mean use your own words. Do not copy from any other text. Just read it and think about it and write down what it says in your words. Finally, for C, you're going to identify whether or not this law used the expressed power or whether it used the implied power and added on that necessary and proper clause. Okay, that may seem a little confusing right now. Once you dig into it, you read some of the slideshow and you learn about these things, it'll seem a lot easier. And in addition, with this assignment, we created a slideshow specifically to give you some guidance and some examples. So here again, the definitions of expressed versus implied powers. I've got the list of expressed or enumerated powers in plain language. There's a quick video to help explain this difference. And then I've got a bunch of slides that show examples. I mentioned Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. They have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, excises, and to pay the debts. That's the expressed power to collect taxes. But the necessary and proper clause added to that implies, as I said, they can also punish tax evaders, people who try to get away without paying taxes, or they can establish the IRS to collect taxes, or that they can make taxes that don't collect revenue, but instead are designed to encourage or discourage certain behavior, like taxing cigarettes so fewer people buy them, that sort of thing. Okay, and I do that for not all 17, but for a number of the 17 clauses. There are examples of the expressed and of various kinds of laws that are implied by that expressed law. So that'll be guidance, that'll be helpful, some examples for you. Okay. I want to mention that I will be doing Monday's office hours expressly to help people work on that assignment. I'm going to be giving some further instructions, going to be walking through it step by step, explaining, and I'll be answering questions if you have any, but if you'd like to just come to the meeting between 2 and 3, you don't have to turn on your camera, you don't have to say anything, you can just watch as I explain it, and hopefully a few of you will be there, I can help you out. And if you want to work on it during those office hours, ask me questions, whatever. I can take a look at your work using Google Classroom, and I can help you work through it. So we're going to be doing that on Monday. The next assignment for the week goes to the next subject that we're discussing, and this is taking those powers that we now know Congress has, both expressed and implied, and we're looking at the way that the candidates for our upcoming election, the candidates to represent Rio Rancho in that upcoming election, promise to use that power. What is it that they want to do with that power? In the slideshow for this week, I've given you some examples of I've given you a link to a list of all the laws made by this most recent Congress over the last couple of years. So you can look at the kind of laws that they've made. But for this one, the congressional candidate analysis, it's due Thursday. What you're going to be asked to do is to look specifically at one of the candidates to represent Rio Rancho in this congressional election. So in the U.S. House of Representatives, there are two candidates for District 3, Alexis Johnson and Teresa Fernandez. Or if you'd prefer for the Senate, you'd be looking at the Democrat Ben Ray Lujan, Mark Ronchetti, the Republican, or Bob Walsh, who's a Libertarian. And what I'm going to ask that you do is that you do a little research before you start filling in blanks, typing in words. Take a little time to look at these people. And I strongly recommend, instead of just choosing one or choosing one that you recognize, maybe take a couple of minutes to look at two different candidates from a particular race. So if you decide to look at the District 3 House race, choose both Alexis Johnson and Teresa Fernandez. Take a look at them, see what they have to say, and then pick one that you want to look into a little more deeply. You're going to be asked to give their name, obviously, a little bit of background, just like you did with the presidential candidate. And then I'm going to ask you to find what you think their main issue is, what it is that they are really hoping to do something about once they get elected. And I'll show you a couple of resources to help you with that. I want you to find a quote that says what they will do regarding that issue if they get elected. And again, I'll show you where to find that information. And then this question, which is really the most important for this particular assignment, which is referring to Article 1, Section 8, does Congress have the power to do what this candidate for Congress is promising? As we know, politicians sometimes say things that are a little bit more than they can actually do. So we're going to take a look and see to what extent that might be true with the candidates that are running this year. And this is, again, the most important question. What power would they be using in order to do this thing that they are promising? Okay, so here are, and I'm sorry, also go ahead and tell me whether you would vote for that person based on their policy positions. I'm not really interested in their party or personality or haircut or their attitude. That's not what we're talking about for this assignment. For your actual vote, that's totally reasonable. But for this assignment, do you like their policies? Now, you can go directly to the candidates' websites if you like, and there are a couple of sites here that have other information, but I really like this one. It's called Just Facts, Vote Smart. And it's just a database that gives a lot of information about the particular candidate. So what you would do is just go here and enter the candidate's name. And I'll enter Ben Ray Lujan just because I can spell his name. And there he is. He pops up. And it'll show us a whole bunch of information about Ben Ray Lujan. So you've got to tell me something about who this guy is. No, thank you. Well, here's some information about what he is. What's his education? What's his political experience? It gives information. He has been a congressman representing District 3. He's running for Senate this year. So he has been in Congress and he has cast votes. So it's not just what he says he's going to do. Here's what he's actually done and what he's actually voted for. And there's several pages, 35 pages of things that he's actually done. You don't have to read them all. Here are his positions on major issues, everything in alphabetical order, not necessarily in order of his importance to him. It gives quotes about what it is that he would do about those things. What's his position on those things? So that's probably where you're going to find your quotes. Also has ratings by people who endorse candidates. So he's 80%, in from the Americans for Democratic Action. Here's some speeches that he's given. Here's funding. Where does he get his money? Always follow the money. And this will have some information about each of those candidates. That's what this website does. But again, we're going to be working on that one on Wednesday in office hours. So if you get started on it, run into a problem, come to office hours, and I'll walk you through it, and we'll help you out with it there in real time. When you're done with all this, don't forget to turn in the slideshow. A lot of kids are leaving points on the table. It's an easy thing to do. Just don't forget. And remember that Friday for our class meeting, we'll shortly review the work you've done this week, but then we are also introducing week 11, and you don't want to miss that. All right. Hope that gives you a little bit of a head start on the week. If you have questions, by all means, ask them in any way that you can. Private comment or email. And look forward to seeing you on Monday at the office hours. Have a good week.